is this is the Torah or book from the book Torah or, which was written by the first Rebbe of Chabad. This is one of the essays that's written here. They weren't written as essays; they were speeches that he gave, and they were written down either by the Rebbe before he gave them or by the pupils of the Rebbe, the Hasidim, afterwards, and then the Rebbe checked them over. But word for word, it's what the Rebbe said. Okay. Again, for those people who might be coming for the first time or listening to this for the first time, the idea of Judaism, which was begun by Abraham, is to educate the whole entire world. Abraham was called Avraham, which means the father of all mankind. And Abraham is supposed to come and educate the whole entire world what God is. And to this day, no one got it right. What exactly is God? There's a lot of other religions, and they worship things which are above normal, which is a good thing to know that we're not kings of the universe. We are not the kings of the universe. There's something above us, but nevertheless, all of these religions, even though they got a little bit of the right idea, but in general, they got the whole thing wrong. Why? Because the purpose of life is supposed to be to dedicate yourself to the source of life, the reason we're here, the reason for life. There's a reason why we're here. There's a reason why we are here, and it's not the reason that meets the eye. The reason that meets the eye is that people die, and after you die, what's going to happen to you? So you make an investment and you have religion. And even those people worried about what happens after you die, but what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen the next moment? And so you can buy a 4-leaf clover or buy a rabbit's foot, or burn incense to one of the planets or something like that, or just to be sure, you can worship God. You can worship one God, you can worship 2 gods, you can worship 5 gods, but still the whole basis of all these other religions are free. I'm going to receive. It's normal way of thinking. A person wants to receive, and he wants to be more secure in life, so he worships a power that's higher than himself. And that's why you do good and bad. But ideally, that's not really what life is about. And that's like the downside of religion, that you're doing things super, super duper selfish for yourself. Even though it might come out good, if these ideas are based on some sort of truth, on conscience or whatever, so it could come out to be truth. I mean, there's tremendous deep truths. For instance, in Buddhism and those things, there's very deep truths that are there. And the other religions, Islam and this Christianity, they take their good things from the Torah. So at least that's something good also, right? All the things they don't take from the Torah are total lies. But except for that, the idea that you're supposed to have is supposed to be that a person lives for this reason that he's created, for the purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? To make this world a perfect place. Make this world a perfect place. Going to heaven is a very good goal, especially if you have the right idea what heaven is, because it means you have to live a pure life. But that's not the purpose. What really gets you into heaven, or whatever these things are, is not thinking about heaven. Is thinking only about the goal. It's the same thing as a doctor that works only for the money, or somebody in sports or music, whatever, and they do it only for the popularity, for this. So they could be very good, but they got the whole idea wrong. So Judaism is supposed to be that you devote yourself totally to the Creator, to the reason for which you are created. And that's the whole idea of the Jewish people going out of Egypt. Egypt was a creator-based nation. They were very religious people, like the Greeks and the Romans. They were very religious people, but their whole religion was only for themselves, that they could control nature in some way, whether through prayer or through actions, through whatever. They could control somehow their nature, that they could suck the most out of it for themselves, so that they could rule and they could have pleasure and they could have security and they could have popularity, they could have power, they could have whatever. And it works for a while. It works. The bad guys win for a while. And so, it seems to be good. But the fact of the matter is it's not true. And Judaism comes to teach the truth. And even though this truth makes you sort of let go for a little while and let go of the immediate rewards that you get from doing bad things and being selfish, but eventually it makes the world into a good place. Look what the world is now. Look at that. Everybody's been selfish for the last, whatever it is, from the last, according to Judaism, for the last 5,784 years. According to, whatever science, or whatever you want to call it, it's since the Piltdown man or the Neanderthal man, whatever, man you got over there, the previous eons from other planets. I've read books a long time ago that there were, billions of years before these other planets, and there were beings that came down. We came from them. Anyway, the world has been going on for billions of years, and look what we've produced. Look what we produced. Just look at the leaders of the world. Look at the wise men of the world. Some of these guys are really bad news, and this is like the end of evolution. I think that most people will agree that apes and those people are better than these people. And it's not no wonder why people love animals, because animals in a lot of ways are really a lot better than people are. I don't think animals would do what the Hamas just did here in Israel. Just come animals, they get satisfied, after they kill a few people. So they get satisfied. Once in a while, I guess you get a wild lion or something. So that's much, much worse than animals. I think it's a big insult to animals to say that these people from the Hamas or the Nazis or whatever, that they were animals. It's animals. If they could, they would sue them for defamation of character. So this is what evolution is brought to. The fact is that Judaism is supposed to come to educate man for three things, mainly. Number one, that God is infinitely close to us. Infinitely close. You don't have to worship people or the Son of God or the Bubby of God or whatever this, or any planets or any things, and go to the stone of God. You don't have to worship. And God is infinitely close. You can directly pray directly to God. God is infinitely close. He creates us. God alone creates everybody. Non-Jews, Jews, only one God creates everybody. Number two, man is good. Man is infinitely good. God made man in his image. Man is good. There's no original sins and all these things. But this good is covered over. You have to work hard, but it's there. It's like digging for diamonds. It's not. You don't have to invent the diamonds. The diamonds are there. Every person in the world is basically good. And number two, this world is good. This world is infinitely better and potentially holier than all of the heavenly worlds, right? And that's the idea of going out of Egypt. The Jewish people were in Egypt. Egypt was a world place. The word in Hebrew for Egypt is almost the same word as the word limitations. A person that's an egotist, he's very limited to what he does. And even if he does good, it can change in a minute. Look at the German people, right? The German people were the most, educated and philosophical and cultured and developed, right? People that were maybe in the history of the world. All of a sudden comes one guy, stands up and says, let's do what's really right and kill everybody. Let's just kill anyone that doesn't agree with us. And they were like great at it. They were great, and they made all sorts of weapons and new weapons and weapons nobody even knew about before, with rockets and this. And they attacked and they won and they were this, and that showed their superiority, their moral superiority. So we see that if man makes up his own ideas, I think there's no better proof than that. If man makes up his own ideas and his own values, his own ethics, then this is what you get. That's what you get. Pretty good example. And here you see the whole world. The whole world. The big the marches in the world. Hundreds of thousands of people on the street. That the Hamas is right. They had every right to rape and behead babies and kill. And this is the 100% right. Nothing better than that. That is the best thing they are doing. And the Jews are trying to stop them from being killed. This is the worst thing from killing them. They're resisting. How can they defend themselves, the Jews? How can they do such a thing? They should be able to do. So the whole world is upside down. So let's talk about what happened. The Jews got out of Egypt. That was step number one. They received the Torah. That was step number two. They went into the land of Israel. That was step number three. And getting out of Egypt shows that God is infinitely close. And receiving the Torah is to show that man is essentially good. And taking the land of Israel is the physical land to show that the world is good. So here we go. Let's go. It's a sentence in the Song of Songs written by King Solomon. The voice of my beloved, it is jumping over the mountains and skipping over the high places. King Solomon. Now, anyone who reads the book of Psalms, a Song of Songs, and I advise everyone to read this book. It is 8 chapters long. King Solomon wrote it, and it's a love song between the Jews and God and the Jews. Sometimes King Solomon is quoting what God is saying, sometimes what the Jews are saying. And it's especially centered around the Jews getting out of Egypt, receiving the Torah, and building the temple. That's this love relationship. Okay, the voice of my beloved is jumping over the mountains and skipping over the hills. This is a song of love. What in the world has this got to do with anything, right? My beloved is skipping over the mountains, right? Say this to your wife. I don't think it's going to go over too well, right? I skip over the mountains for you, right? Yes, you do, and you jump over the high places. What type of a thing is this? King Solomon is really, serious. He's saying this to God. So now we're going to see how infinitely serious and beautiful this really is. Here we go. Shadilug Kates, it says he jumped over. What did he jump over? He jumped over the date of salvation. Kates HaYeshua. The date of salvation. The end of salvation. From Tuf Lamed is 430. Earlier in the Torah, it says that the Jewish people were going to be in Egypt for 430 years. And he cut it down. Other places it says 400 years. He cut it down to Redu Shana, 210 years. 210 years. So the Jews were really supposed to be in Egypt for 400 years. This is a tough lamb. It was supposed to be for 400 years. And instead, they were there for 210 years. Take away 210, which is when they got out. And how many years were remaining? Well, should they have been? They should have been in for 400 years. Instead, they got out for 210 years. So 210 means they got out 190 years early. So that's the case. That's the case. They got out 190 years early. Okay, so God took away 190 years from the suffering that they were supposed to be suffering. That's what it means. Medaleg al harim. It jumped over the mountains. God made them jump over the time that they were supposed to suffer, and he cut it down. Jump over. Instead of going straight, he jumped over. Okay, now what this is talking about the Jewish people in Egypt. Now, Judaism is based on this weird, bizarre, but very, very well documented and witnessed event called the going out of Egypt. According to this in the Torah, it says that the Jews, and that there were, it says in the Torah, 600,000 Jews, just males, 600,000 males from the age of 20 years up, which is not counting the women and not counting the children. So it comes out there's something like 3 million Jews. They got out, and it says only 1/5 of them went out. So there was 15 million Jews. But let's just talk about the ones that got out. So 3 million Jews got out of Egypt, where they were slaves for 210 years. They were anyways slaves for 210 years. The actual hard servitude was a lot shorter, but they were slaves for 210 years. And they all got out miraculously. 10 weird plagues. Hail came down from heaven with fire inside of it. And they went across the sea. The sea split for them. And they got bread from heaven, water from a rock. and they received the Torah 50 days later. Now, all this is documented in the Torah. The Torah has been passed down non-stop for the last 3,300 plus years since God gave it. And these stories have been passed down from generation to generation from people who saw it. They gave it to their children and told them it was there. And their children said, my father saw it. And their children said, my grandfather, great-grandfather. So it's been passed down non-stop by the Jews since this time. The Jews have been reading the Torah in public for 3,300 years. Moses instituted that they should read the Torah 3,300 years without stopping. There's always been Jews somewhere that have been reading the Torah. Always. When they were taking all of them to Egypt, to Babylon, and when they were scattered around the world, there's always been Jews that are reading the Torah. One mistake in the Torah, everybody jumps on it. So here's this amazing story. The Jews were in Egypt. They got out and they received the Torah. Why? Why? Why does they have to be such? All the other religions are based on normal stories. A person went into the desert, or he went on a mountain, or he came out from somewhere, and he said, I have had a dispensation, I have had a revelation. And everyone says, yeah, let's see, prove it. So he goes and he makes an army, kills a few people, or he does a couple of miracles or something, raises the dead. That's it. He is the Lord. He is our Lord. He is the one that is bringing the new dispensation. Why? And those religions succeed. You got billions of people that worship that the Islam and this, and they succeed. The religion, they have one guy. Here, Judaism has this amazing story that's well documented, and how many people really believe in it? Are actually observant Jews, right? Not more than 50%. That's for sure. The minority of the Jews are. So why have this story? It's not a practical story. But nobody denies it happened. No one denies it happened. Maybe there's a few Israeli professors or somebody that deny that it happened. But except for that, everyone says, okay, so it happened. So what? Big deal. Even the Jews themselves that saw it, they came to Mount Sinai, they worshipped the golden calf. So what's the whole story of being in Egypt and giving out? The having to understand getting out. Let's understand the Geula. What is this idea of the Geula, the redemption, the going out from Egypt, Beruchnius, spiritual. Like it says, Hoshia lo yamino, that God saved, he lifted up his saving hand. His right hand, okay. So again, I wanted to stress again that the purpose of Chabad in general, is to show that everything that's in the Torah is inside of us. Everything in the Torah. If we said before that Abraham came to teach the whole world, so what's he supposed to teach the world? So that's what the Torah gives us. The Torah gives us the power and the ability, and also the lesson, what to teach, and what to bring across to the whole world. But good. So this idea, everything in the Torah is inside of us. So going out of Egypt must be inside of us. And it's such a big monumental thing, according to the Jews, that all of them were slaves. They all got out of Egypt. How are we supposed to manifest this in ourselves? Here we go. What is this? Tzorech lahavin, we have to understand. Techila, first of all, in a galus, what is exile? What is the idea of exile? If you read a tzorech aliyah, and a descent, descending down, bad things happening for the sake of something good happening afterwards. Like it says, Ani eredi imcha, I will go down with you to Egypt. Right? God said to Yaakov, I will go down with you to Egypt. Va'anochi elecha gam alo, and I will take the Jews out also, going down and coming up. So they went down into Egypt and they came up out of Egypt. And it says, this is a sign, at the burning bush. This is a sign that I sent you. God said to Moses, this is the sign that I sent you. Like, make this bigger here. This is the sign that I sent you. Mitzraim, when you go out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. That was at the burning bush. The burning bush was on Mount Sinai. The burning bush was on Mount Sinai. And God said, this is the sign, you're going to leave Egypt and you're going to serve me on this mountain. You're going to come right back to this mountain. And Rashi brings two reasons that in the merit of receiving the Torah, you're going to go out of Egypt. And this is going to be the sign. You're going to, as soon as you come back to this mountain, you're going to see that it was me that was talking to you. That God was talking. Hainu, Al Har Sinai on Mount Sinai, B'Shat Matan Torah, the time of Matan Torah, when God gave the Torah. Sho'elu, what happened in Mount Sinai? Sha'yagile Elokuso, that God revealed Himself, panim el panim, face to face, to all the Jewish people. Everyone saw God. Ulahavin Zetzara, and we want to understand this. In Surah Lahavin, we have to understand the pasuk Anochi Ered Imcha Mitzraima. I will go down with you to Egypt. God said to Yaakov, I'll go down with you, Jacob. I'll go down with you to Egypt. God said this. What, God is a person? What is it? What's going on over here? Shalichior, at first glance, ain't a move, it's not understood. Shaloshin said this expression, lo shayachim except b'lashon b'nei adam, people. Shemitchila, that in the beginning, lo haya b'makom ahu, in the beginning God was not in Egypt, and then God said, don't worry, I'm going to go down with you to Egypt. No, what's wrong with that? Because God is everywhere. Masha Inkin, it's lo yisbrich. Halokasiv, isn't it so? At the Shemayim, at the Or, it's animalay. God, according to what we're teaching over here, and this is perhaps the main message of Judaism, right? What is the motto of Judaism? Motto of Judaism is a sentence in the book of Deuteronomy, a sentence. Shema Yisrael, listen Jews, Hashem Elokeinu, God is our God, Hashem Echad, God is one. And Rashi explains, what does it mean that God is one? And he says that now God is only our God. In the future, God is going to be one. Everyone in the world will see that God is creating everything all the time. So everything that you see means it's being created right now by God. So God exists without being created. God is not created. God is the power of creation, has the power of creation. That's one of God's powers. This is totally incomprehensible. And that's the God of the Jews. That's the God of the Jews. The God of the Jews is the creator of the whole universe right now. Creating everything. He's creating it by a process that you don't see him. And there's also, if you could see him, then there wouldn't be any world. So God is doing, okay, that's explained other places. It's called Simtsum, etc. That's why it says in the Bible that God spoke. He created the world through speech, just like when a person speaks. So he gets ideas out of his head. The ideas are much greater. Let me do this 1 second here. 1 second. The camera is delicately balanced over here. All right. I have actually a stand, but it's too high. Okay. So God, but nevertheless, the fact is everything you see is being created by God. So nothing can conceal God, really. I mean, because nothing is really anything. Nothing really has any true, real substance to it, because if God would stop creating it, it wouldn't be there. So God is everywhere. So how can God say, I'm going to go down with you to Egypt? Of course, you can ask the same question on the whole Torah. How can God speak, right, and say, this is what I want? And God told Abraham, Adam, don't eat from this tree. Where are you? God spoke. Okay, but let's say voices coming from heaven. That's a little more, how do you say, acceptable somehow or other. But God saying, I wasn't in Egypt, and now I'm going to come down to Egypt. What does it mean? So obviously this is true to us now, right? We don't see or feel God because somehow or other God is not here, and he has to come down to eat. So what does it mean? Let's see. But the answer is like this: the Hine Omer Rizal, the rabbis say, that's it. Okay. Hine, the rabbis say, Mazkirin Yitzias Mitzrayim B'Layla, that we mention going out of Egypt in the nighttime. 1 minute. We mentioned going out of Egypt in the nighttime. So I have to go here. Here we go. We mentioned going out of Egypt in the nighttime. There we go. Pirish, What is the nighttime? Bakala Golius Veshibud Hadomos, which are like nighttime. Shekol Bechinas Agalus, the whole idea of exile is Galut Mitzraim. Okay, what does it mean? We're going to talk about this also in the Devar Malchut. This is talking about, it's in the Mishnayot, in Brachot. It says when you see Shema Yisrael, you say 2 paragraphs of Shema Yisrael. And some people say you should say 3 paragraphs. Because the 3rd paragraph some people say you should say 3 paragraphs because it talks about going out of Egypt. Other people say, good, it talks about going out of Egypt, but it also has the commandment of tzitzit, putting on these tzitzit. That's what in the 3rd paragraph talks about tzitzit, and we don't put tzitzit on in the nighttime. So we don't say it in the nighttime. And the opinion is, yes, we do say it in the nighttime. So even though it does talk about tzitzit, which we don't put on, but it talks about going out of Egypt was a good thing. Talk about Egypt. So it says we talk about Egypt. We mentioned the 3rd chapter of the Shema Yisrael because it talks about going out of Egypt. So that's going out of Egypt. We talk about in the nighttime. Good. That's physically a law, but we can extrapolate this to mean something metaphorically more real than that. What's more real than that? Nighttime is not just when the sun sets. Nighttime is the whole time of exile. Nighttime is the time when we don't see God. We don't even know that God exists. Don't see any miracles. Don't even think that there is such a thing. That's called nighttime. And all the times that the Jewish people are not aware of what a Jew means, what holy means, they don't have the holy temple, they're not in the holy land, they don't learn the Torah because it's holy. That's called exile. And all the exiles that the Jewish people are in, Hadomos L'Lailas, that's like nighttime. Shekol Bechinas Agalus, that all this idea of exile is Bechinas Galus Mitzrayim. All of them are basically the same thing as the exile in Egypt. What was in Egypt? The Jewish people, the identity, Jewish identity was, we are slaves. First of all, we're slaves. We're slaves. We're also Jews. We're Jews. That's why we're slaves, because we're Jews. Not such a good thing to be a Jew, because you become a slave. But we are Jews, and we're not going to leave being a Jew. But mainly we're slaves. That's, you wake up a slave, you act like a slave, you go to sleep a slave, you're a slave. That's being in Egypt. That's being in Egypt. Your Jewish identity is impaired, confused. The Canaan and Geula, also that's the thing of the Geula. What does Geula mean? Redemption. Like it says in the prophet Micha, just like the days when you left Egypt, I will show you big miracles, just like it was when the Jews left Egypt. Ba'avoda kasha, and in Egypt they had to do hard work. B'chomer u'bilevanim, excuse me, with cement and bricks. Right? They had to build these whatever sphinxes or pyramids or whatever they built. They built big cities over there. Kach also, and it says even more that it was avodas perech, that they made them do meaningless jobs. Right? They would work for whatever is a year, build a big city, and then they take them away and build another city, and they say, okay, now we want you to build a 3rd city. They go back, hey, this is the place where we just finished building. I know, we tore it down. We want you to build it again, just to work, just to make them keep working and working and working for no reason. That's called avoda kasha. That also, and all the exile, even that's not similar to the same thing in physical, right? We're now in exile. We're now in exile, even though it's not the same hard work, backbreaking work, life-endangering work as it was back then. But nevertheless, yesh bechinas avoda kasha. Nevertheless, we do still have hard work in chomer bilvenim, in cement and in bricks, spiritually. How? Like it's written in Raya Mehemna, in the book Raya Mehemna, which is one section of the Zohar, a mystical book of Judaism. It says, B'chomer da kol v'chomer. Levenim zelibun hilchasa. These are 2 principles used in learning the Torah. One's called a kol v'chomer. It's one of the principles by which the Torah is learned. Levenim, this is libun hilchasa. making the laws clear, clarifying laws. And all the work in the field, that's the Breita. Breita is another type of in the Talmud. So in other words, the Torah that we're learning now is in place of the hard work that we did back then in Egypt. But it's hard work to learn Torah. It's not easy to learn the Torah. To learn the Torah means you have to have ideas. You have to understand what you're reading. And then you have to try to understand if your understanding of what you read is proper. And then once you understand that your understanding is proper, then you start to read commentaries and you see that, that they have a different understanding than you. A different understanding than you. So you say, okay, maybe he's right. And then you read a third commentary, and this commentary has a different opinion than both of you. Is that, well, maybe he's right. And then you read a fourth opinion that encompasses all the opinions and say they're all right. This one is just talking about this, and this one's talking about that. And this is talking about a third thing. So it comes out that it's okay. And that's called learning the Torah. You're learning the Torah, you understand. Then you can also have ideas in the Torah that are totally wrong, right? There's totally misinterpretations of the Torah possible to do. And that's what it means. You have to learn the Torah and work hard at learning the Torah now. That is now in the place of building these cities. And just like sometimes they would build the cities and knock them all down, sometimes you can get ideas in the Torah and they're totally wrong. You have to knock the whole thing down. I mean, basically, it's not that's what basically, the Christianity is. It's just learning the Torah and totally misunderstanding every single sentence and every single idea, but basing a whole huge building on these misunderstandings and improper understandings. It's the same thing, basically, what Reform Judaism is and Conservative Judaism. They have ideas in the Torah. They take a little idea and they build a whole building on something that's improper, that's not true, on a wrong idea, that's exile. That's what exile means. And that we work, sometimes you have to work hard, and you work hard, and sometimes you build big buildings, and they're just. On the other hand, learning the Torah is essential. You have to know what to do. And not only that, it's the will and wisdom of God. That's one of the reasons that God gave the Torah in the world. Not just that we'll read it one time and that's it. You have to learn the Torah. The Torah requires understanding and learning and correcting and developing. Let's understand this. It says that the Egyptians made the life of the Jews bitter. Perush, ki ha'avot, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they correspond to the emotions. Ava v'yira, rachmanut. Love, Abraham, he brought the ability to love God into the world. Yitzchak, to fear God. And Yaakov, to have mercy, arousing God's mercy. To feel how far away we are from God and how close God is to us, that he loves us. He has mercy no matter how far away we are. That's Yaakov. Where do they get their okay, that's by us. We have love of God, fear of God, emotions to God. Where do these emotions come from? They come from intellect. Shehem Chachma Bina, they are Chachma and Bina and the greatness of God. Why did Abraham love God? Because he understood something about God. Why did Yitzchak love God? He understood another aspect of God. Abraham understood how great God is and good God is. Yitzchak understood how powerful God is. Yaakov understood how merciful God is. Incredibly high and incredibly low that God is. Higher than the spiritual worlds and low down here with the worst sinners. That's Abraham, yeah, but it all came from intellect. Now, these are all proper inside of us. Every single Jew has inside of him, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, love of God, fear of God, and the mercy of God is inside, but it depends on our understanding. That's Chabad Chassidut, to open up our intellect. Chabad is Chachma, Bina, and Dat. So this requires the Chachma and Bina and the greatness of God, Ladat, in order to dat and to feel, Ki ein oda, there's nothing except for God. Vashamayim mimal, on the heavens above and on the earth below. Lamaila arein kates, above without any end. Lamata arein tachlit, and below without any stopping. Uladalit sitrin, into four directions. In other words, we're here in a world we're here in the world. God put us in the world, and the reason that we're here in the world, Jews first, but eventually the whole entire world, is to realize that this world is a big, incredible miracle. And every single instant in it is an amazing, precious gift. And nothing basically is understood. Basically. But on the other hand, we have intellect. God gives us, and He wants us to use our intellect to understand. And the more we understand, the better. And it's a commandment to try to understand. It's a commandment to use our minds and our emotions to improve the world. That's what science is. And to use your mind and your emotions in order to improve the world, make the world a better place. That's what it's supposed to be. But first of all, we have to know who we're serving. We have to know that God is creating us. And that this world is an amazing gift. We should have tremendous gratitude every moment for everything, and also tremendous value for every one of God's creations. That's what it's a haskala, that when we understand this, Nolda is born, minisor, and aroused love inside of everybody. Became also yira, also fear. He called nitzutz Mitzraim, every spark of the Jewish souls, yeshbo bechinas ava, has in it love and fear. What is love? How good God is. Fear, how awesome God is. They are the essence of the soul. Like it says in another place. The king, Knesset Yisrael, and also the Jewish people, like it says, what is Knesset Yisrael? Knesset Yisrael means all the Jewish people. Knesset means to come together. The chibur, the joining of all the souls, that's called Beit Nadiv. This is called Bat Nadiv. Bito Shel Avram Avinu. It's called Nadiv. Mipnei shehu ish chesed, a mitnadev chesed. That all the Jewish people together are called, in general, the daughter of Abraham, because Abraham was the aspect of God's kindness, and that's where all the souls of the Jewish people really come from. All the upper worlds and the lower worlds, and this is called Avinu. Therefore, Abraham is called our father, because he comes from this level of the love of God. The Yerushatenu, and that we are Jews, that we inherited this Judaism, comes from him. But so if so, it should, the whole thing is set. Everything should be okay. We're sons directly from Abraham. We have love of God. We have appreciation of God. So what's the problem? That God gave people free choice. And a person has the ability to transform this love that every Jew has for God, and seeing the world as a big miracle, the opposite, that a person can just love himself. Therefore, you have to work on it. You have to give yourself reason to love God. Now, why does a person love himself? Very simple, because you feel yourself, and you're infinitely close to yourself, and a person is infinitely valuable. I'm alive. This is a big miracle. I'm alive. It's me. I can't get over myself, right? How amazing I am, how great I am, how fantastic I am. The stupidest person in the world thinks he's smarter than everybody else because he doesn't feel anybody else like he feels himself. It's me, right? Well, that's how much we should try to feel God. We should, this me that I feel and I love, it's a creation. God is creating me. This is not a normal feeling. This is not a normal sense that we have. The Jewish people have it inside of themselves. They do. Eventually, the whole world will have it inside. That's called the godly soul. Eventually, the whole world will learn from the Jewish people. But until then, the Jewish people have an equal and opposite force to be selfish. And this is the whole idea of Shir HaShirim. That's the whole idea of the Song of Songs of King Solomon. Namely, who should I love? Me or God? And the Song of Songs is giving all these reasons why we should love God. And how much God loves us. And how God searches for us, and he tries to inspire this love no matter how much we don't want it. That's the thing of the sound of my beloved is knocking. Kol dodi dofek. That's the whole idea of the Song of Songs of King Solomon. Im ta'iru, im ta'oraru. If you wake up, if you are aroused, his orurus ahava, namely to arouse this love, is by means of kol dodi dofik. The sound, the arousing love inside of it is because God is knocking. He's trying to arouse us. He's knocking on our soul, reminding us that He exists, that He creates us, that He loves us. But so that's what the rabbis say. Anshe Yericho, the people in Jericho, you korchim at the Shema, that they were korchim, shortening saying Shema Yisrael. How were they shortening? Oh, it's a commandment every day to say twice a day the sentence in the Torah. Some say the whole paragraph, some say 2 paragraphs, but nevertheless, the custom of the Jewish people is we say 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is the main one, and it is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Ve'ahavta et Hashem. It's a sentence it's a paragraph written in the Torah, in Parshas Et Chanan. You can look it up in Deuteronomy, not far from the beginning of Deuteronomy. You want to see where that is? I had to sit over here. I'll tell you exactly where it is. Here it is, Deuteronomy. Is it here? No, it's not here. The siddur that I have. Here it goes. Here it goes. Yes, it is. Deuteronomy. Here it goes. Chapter 6, sentence 4. Shema Yisrael. So look it over there. You'll see the 6 words. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's the 6 words. Then after that comes a paragraph. We have to say this also. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You should love God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your might. The rabbis instituted that between Shema and the next sentence, which that's how it's written in the Torah, they should insert a sentence which is not written in the Torah. And that is, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam Bo'ed. It's explained why that this is in order to bring the oneness of God into your heart, so that this, another thing you should think about, this Baruch Shem, blessed is the name, the holy, the North, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, blessed is the name of the honor, of the glory of God forever and ever. There's all these different aspects of God to think about. Well, the people in Jericho, they skipped over all this extra sentence. And they wouldn't shelo hayu mafsiking between echad and ahava, kiminit bonanut, because they would just think about oneness of God. Echad, echad emet, that it's true. Ki ein od milvado, they would feel Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. They would feel nothing except for God. I am a creation. They would feel like they would be like in the holy temple. Excuse me. So Memela automatically in Nimshach Yisoros, there would be an arousal of love to God without stopping. They wouldn't have to think anymore. They would just think about God as one, and that's it. They would love God immediately. Okay, and therefore, Mitzraim, we end in Kriya Shema, we say Emet. Right after we finish saying Shema Yisrael, there's 15 praises of God. We had this before. Remember we talked about Levi last week. Emet v'yatziv, that this feeling of love of God is true, and it's yatziv, and it's stable. Yatziv means emet. The word yatziv is a Hebrew word, but it's also an Aramaic word for true. Yatziv means something that's true. Elisha Omrim Gam B'Lashon Targum, the reason we say it in Targum is Shehu Echad Emet, because it is the God is one, the truth, whether in physical or spiritual. In other words, the Targum is how Judaism is translated into other languages. So we're saying even in other languages, no matter where you are, God is one. Nevertheless, that's the idea of being in exile and working hard to get out, the hard service they did in exile. This is when Chachma and Bina, when your concept and your understanding of God is B'hid Bonanus, in your mind, you think about it as Gadol B'mocho, it's great. And you think about God clearly. By means of this, you can arouse your emotions, love and fear. But a person, Shamocho Katan, but a person whose mind is too small to think about these ideas in God, to arouse this love, Hine Zot Eitzah, this is the advice, Emuna, faith. It's a to Emuna, this is the faithful advice. Litzok El Hashem, cry out to God. You say, God, listen, I know you exist. I know you're real. I know you're creating me. It says it in the books. I don't feel it. I think about you. I'm trying. I'm thinking, but it's just not going anywhere. All of a sudden in the middle of prayer, I think, oh, maybe I have to go and buy something for my wife. Maybe I'm thinking all these other thoughts. The world is real to me. God, you're not real to me, but I know you exist, and I know there are people that you are real to, and I know that you are real, and I know that I'm wrong, but help. Like it says, Sa'ak libam. Your heart has to call out to God. Because the voice arouses intention. But he's galos la'or, and it becomes revealed, the love becomes revealed in your heart. This is called Mitzraim. That's the idea of Egypt. Meitzer yom hachma sheyordo v'slabsho b'meitzer agoron. That's really called Egypt. That you know God exists, it's in your head, but it doesn't come into your heart. What's between your head and your heart? Your throat. So it says, therefore call it to God. Now this does not mean, at least Chabad does not interpret it this way, that you should be yelling out all the time, right, to God. But it does mean that you should speak to God and your heart should scream out to God. Right? Help me, God. And it doesn't mean you have to do it also in public where people can hear it. You can be private also. And it doesn't mean you have to do it an extended amount of time. Even for 1 second is enough. But still, the fact of the matter is he calls out to God and says, God, help me. I know that you are my creator and I don't feel it. Give me a little inspiration. That's the idea of going out from the throat, which is like Egypt, from the brain to the heart, as we will explain, God willing, more tomorrow. And now, let's go to the Devar Malchut. 1 second.